Jack, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elle. It's great to be here, and thanks for the very kind intro.
Yes, I have been looking forward to this conversation for so long. I know I initially reached out to you because the campaign was so popular. I'm not going to lie. I had a little FOMO because I was not a granola customer, so I did not get a Granola Crunched year in review. So
we'll have to get you this year for Granola Crunched.
Exactly, right? Okay, so let's quickly get our listeners up to speed. For those of you who may not know what granola is, help us understand. What is granola?
So Granola is the AI notepad for people in back-to-back meetings. So really simple. It's a separate app that lives on your computer or on your phone. And whilst you're in a meeting, you can take rough notes, and then Granola transcribes in the background. And then once the meeting is over, Granola will take the rough notes you've made and enhance them and make them into readable summaries. So you can kind of stay focused on the conversation you're having and not worry about making sure that every detail was captured. So yeah, we're based out here in London. Team is growing. There's about 50 of us, and we keep growing. And I guess the big thing for us at the moment is kind of growing Granola from a notes app to an app that makes the most of the context that you get from within your meetings. So we just launched something called MCP, which is basically a way to let Granola talk to ChatGPT, Claude, and all your other AI apps. So yeah, lots of stuff going on.
Whoa, that is so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this. I remember when I would this was a long time ago. This was before AI, or maybe like right when AI like meeting summaries started to come out several years ago. Or maybe just like recording transcripts. And I remember I'm very much like a hand note taker. It's just part of my processing. And I remember I'd go back and like listen to the recordings to try to fill in things that I missed. So I love that it just does that for me. Very cool. It's pretty game changer with the new MCP. Congrats on the MCP, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty cool. People are really loving it. So it's great.
I love it. Okay. Well, for today, we're going to dive into the first segment of the show. So the first segment is where we talk about the case study example, specifically on Granola Crunched and that campaign and how you guys pulled it off. So tell me a little bit more about what was going on at Granola when you realized you needed some kind of campaign like this.
Yeah, we were really surprised at how much people loved Granola Crunched when we put it out to the world. But it all basically started as maybe a few things. There was a desire on our side to do something fun for our users, to be a bit more visible on social media. And, we felt that the product had good word of mouth growth already. Lots of folks were already talking about us on Twitter, AI Twitter. There's a lot of conversation about Granola already, so that's great. And, every time we speak to users about Granola, they absolutely love it. They swear by it. So we feel very lucky that we already had kind of fairly strong product market fit. The thing that we wanted to boost is actually people talking about Granola online more, because basically we thought that we could juice that a little bit. So people are already talking about Granola online a bunch, but how could we find a way to get customers to talk about Granola more? Now, at the same time, we spend some time brainstorming fun marketing ideas, and we kind of all just got there's this desire in every company, isn't there, for your product to go viral at some point. So, we were just kind of talking through some of these, some ideas. And, it was back in the summer where we were brainstorming some ideas, and someone, talked about Spotify Wrapped, which is, I guess, for every marketer, it's every marketer's dream to do a version of Spotify Wrapped. But, over the last 10 years, they've become a bit ubiquitous, shall we say, and they're very, I think lots of people do them. And you mentioned LinkedIn at the beginning. Not many of them are done very well, and they just become more noise rather than like genuine user value. So we were kind of, thinking about how we might be able to do it. And, the one thing we didn't want to do is just do something that was gimmicky. That said, Granola knows a lot about you. it's surprising how much, because you say a lot in meetings that reveal a lot about you. The phrases that you use in meetings, the people that you spend time with in meetings, the decisions you make, the projects that you advance, and the achievements that you celebrate. These all happen in conversations with your colleagues. And so, we thought there was an opportunity here to use that context in some way and actually it not feel like a gimmick in the way that some of the recaps do today. So yeah, we were in our summer we were going through things in the summer. We were actually working with some interns. Shout out to Luke and Malika who were with us over the summer. Incredible engineering interns. They were super, super smart people. And they worked on a bunch of things whilst they were here. But for their last week, which also was a week that the whole team was at the company villa in Mallorca, which we call Casa Granola, we thought we'd give them a fun project to work on. And so we thought, well, why don't you work on Granola Wrapped, as we called it at the time? And so they built a very basic version based on a technology that we have called Recipes. It's a feature that basically lets you save custom prompts. And the results were really surprising. Like even with a very basic prompt behind it, we were all kind of a bit blown away by the things that Granola could say about us and what we had done. And so after seeing the prototype of it, I just thought we have to do this. So, they finished their internship with us and went back to university mid-September, which is around the time that we were doing Q4 planning. And I just put launch Granola Wrapped into our Q4 plans. And I just wrote that, just the words launch Granola Wrapped. And I did that because I wanted us to do it, because I knew how cool it would be just based on the team's reactions. So I kind of forced ourselves to think about how we might do it. And I guess that's where we ended up by kind of pursuing it as a project, I guess.
Yeah. And then you just made it happen. So I love this story. And I know you mentioned at the beginning, the goal in mind was around getting people to talk more about granola. You had this initial word of mouth conversation, but it sounds like a lot of that initial word of mouth probably happened more, behind closed doors. You didn't necessarily have people creating an organic post on LinkedIn saying, hey, I use granola, it's great. But this is obviously people started doing that, but just wrapped up, no pun intended, in your, insights that you guys.
Yeah, 100%. And, we did have some folks sharing, but I think, we felt that the product was so, people do really love using granola. Like you should see our feedback forms are just full of, praise, which I, feel very genuinely lucky to be here. And I just thought we can get more people to talk about it. So we thought, how do we do that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And going back to something that you said about when you saw the initial results with a super basic, basically prompt that the interns were able to put together and that you were just blown away with it. You know what it reminded me of? And maybe this is still the actual output of the whole campaign. And I think is a testament to why being so customer centric and specifically using the insights that you had available to you was so successful, tapping a little bit into human psychology. It's kind of like why people like reading about their personalities or their personality. People like taking personality tests. Ooh, what's my personality type? So it has a little bit of that flavor to it. So it's just very interesting. I don't think that wasn't necessarily intentional for you. It's just something that you guys discovered as you started to, run those internal, I guess not experiment necessarily, but the test internally with the interns and kind of the rest of the company for that summer end project.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that was a big learning for us. And, maybe we'll talk about this in more depth in a bit, but a big learning for us was people really love to read about themselves. And then they like to talk about themselves, but they don't like doing it directly. So people like saying how great they are, but they don't like to say that they're great from their own voice. So if Granola can do it for them, great. And that's kind of, that was a big thing we learned.
Totally. Right, right. I think in our prep call ahead of this recording, I think you said something like, what's an acceptable way for a user or a listener or, people out in the world might be thinking, what's an acceptable way for me to brag about myself without bragging about myself? So it kind of creates that. So, well, I was going to ask you about the insights that you decided to use and how you found the insights. I guess you mentioned before that by nature of the product that Granola just knows a lot about you and has that context. How did you decide which insights to include?
So, great question. I think, we set ourselves a bunch of criteria. And I think first and foremost, they needed everything that we showed folks needed to feel like they'd been seen. So they needed to feel really, oh my God, Granola really kind of gets me. It should reveal something quite meaningful, and it should be something that you want to share. So you hear something that you want to share and you maybe think, okay, post it on LinkedIn or on X or somewhere else, like a social media platform. But we kind of thought about it in maybe three different ways. We thought about it in terms of posting publicly. So posting something on LinkedIn or X, and that kind of a thing would maybe be, an achievement that you did at work, something that you felt really proud of doing, or something that sold your services. So we had a lot of people who are consultants basically using their Granola Crunched as a bit of a customer testimonial ad for their own business, which was really interesting. So that was definitely useful because it's valuable for the user and for Granola, right? The second thing the second vector of sharing that we were thinking about is Slack or Teams or email. Probably not email, but certainly Slack and Teams. These are the kind of company in-jokes that you might have. So, someone's always falling asleep on a call, or someone always uses the same buzzwords. So we kind of optimized for that in terms of, so we had catchphrases, and we also had your work bestie. I can't remember what we called it, but it was your partner in crime or something. And then the third vector was maybe sharing with friends. So something that you say at work that may be transferable outside of work, what would you send someone on WhatsApp? So we saw success on the first two. A lot of people did share very publicly on LinkedIn or X. And then there was a lot of kind of, from what we can see, obviously we don't know for sure, but anecdotally we heard that lots of people were sharing on Slack. And we also kind of saw that, we had analytics on the share button. We saw lots of people were pressing share and not necessarily seeing that same percentage show up on LinkedIn or X. So you can deduct that there was a lot of sharing on Slack as well. So that's kind of how we thought about it. Happy to go into more detail about how we made that work. But yeah.
Right, right. And part of what works so well with the campaign, and I guess the output of the campaign, is that it was funny and fun and witty and entertaining. And I think that was intentional, as you mentioned. So I guess how did you make it funny?
So it's a very difficult thing to do well, especially with AI. It's very hard to make AI funny. And I can claim no credit really for making Granola Crunched funny. We spent a lot of time thinking about the tone and what kinds of things we want to say about Granola, about users in the experience. And, we always wanted it to be accurate first and foremost. We wanted it to kind of be respectful. We didn't, a lot of certainly Spotify and some others have kind of gone down a roasting route. And we tried that. We tried to roast people and it just felt super mean. Honestly, it did not work.
You're it doesn't make me feel good.
Right, 100%. And I can kind of see how roasting definitely works on Spotify because you can be like, haha, you listen to Taylor Swift, let me roast you. But there's something different about when it comes to your conversations. So yeah, we basically talked about it. We kind of set ourselves a bunch of principles that kind of were aligning on how do we make this super shareable and interesting, but also we don't cross a line where we kind of upset and offend people. And the way we mainly did that, honestly, was by kind of making an example, showing it to people inside the company, and then getting their reaction and just kind of seeing how they felt about it. And so our chief of staff here, Jo, is behind all of our kind of AI prompting. And so she spent countless hours, I would say over 24 hours worth, just pure tweaking the prompt to make it work and do it properly. Like the most attention that we spent on this whole project was tweaking the AI and the kind of prompting behind it to make sure that it felt really sharp, but also empathetic and pulled the right detail, didn't make any assumptions about you, didn't offend you, didn't say anything that was confidential, because a lot of your meeting context is confidential. You think about, we spent a lot of time thinking about people who work in the people teams or HR or recruiting. Sometimes you're having very difficult conversations, and the last thing you want is for that to come up in this situation, right?
Or if you're, like revealing product details or product roadmap information, there's all kinds of things, right?
Yeah. So we spent a lot of time thinking about those use cases, and slowly but surely we worked our way into a prompt that felt like it was giving good and funny results, and it felt safe enough to start scaling out to more people. But as I say, I can take no credit for that. That was all Jo, who did an incredible job. Really.
Shout out Jo. That's awesome. And what I love that, and this is credit, entirely to Jo, but then also the rest of the team to sit down and think through what those principles are. And you really put yourselves kind of in the customer's shoes to think through how would we make this, like what is required to make this shareable, something that they're proud of. Basically, it has to be something that they're proud to put their name on. And everyone likes to be funny, so
yeah. It's kind of like, the way we thought about it really was, is this something that says something about someone? Like, yes, no. And if yes, does it say enough about that person for them to share it with someone else or feel really warm about Granola? And if it didn't hit that bar, then it was out, because everything had to feel like you'd been really seen by. And, the reason we had, I can't remember the exact number of kind of screens we had in it, but the reason we did 8 or 9 in the end is because everyone's different. And as we were testing it with folks, some people really resonated with their partner in crime, whereas other people really resonated with their catchphrase, and other people really resonated with their achievements. And so we wanted everyone to feel warm about the whole thing, but different people are minded to share different things. And if there was one version where we basically were just going to go with 1 or 2 slides and that's it. But what we found is that actually there was no clear winner on the slides of which people would share. So we shipped them all and hopefully, it felt like an appropriate length. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love how you kind of just went with your gut a little bit on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which intuition is sometimes part of the game, just leaning into intuition. Okay, let's talk about the launch. How did you actually put this into the world and make sure that it kept up with the fire, the wildfire spread?
Well, yeah. So we spent in total, probably myself and James, who's a design engineer on our team, we probably end-to-end spent 6 weeks on this project. We started roping folks in at weeks 2 to 3, and it ended up with 5 of us, I think, kind of looking to ship the experience. And, we did lots of like readiness checks from like an engineering and platform point of view to make sure that we were super, super ready in kind of all scenarios. I was expecting folks to resonate with it, but I really didn't expect what was about to come. So on the Monday, we launched on a Tuesday. On Monday night, we did all our final checks. We went through the experience. We had one last minute change to the beginning of the experience, which was actually just to reiterate how private this data is. Like, no one at Granola can see it. No one inside your company can see it. The only time this data gets shared is if you choose to share it. So we didn't have that in there, and we felt it was important to put it in to kind of set the scene. So we made that change on a Monday evening before we went out on Tuesday. And then, Tuesday morning, about 8 a.m. UK time, we'd basically made the calculation. So most of our customers are based in the US. And generally speaking, when we launch something, we launch around 9 a.m. Pacific time. The reason we do that is because that's when folks in San Francisco, our biggest market, are waking up. But we made the calculation this time that actually we have enough users in the UK to see it and then start talking about it. Then New York wake up at 3 p.m. And by the time New York wake up, hopefully there's a critical mass of people talking about it online. And that transfers to New York and then again to San Francisco. Turns out that was a good decision because that's exactly what happened. So we set the product live at 8 a.m. We put a banner inside the product. So in Granola, we have like your upcoming meetings at the top. We have your meetings that you've taken notes for at the bottom. And then we put a bar in the middle that just said, your 2025 crunched. And then very much just like tap to see what this is all about. We sent an email, which slowly, I mean, you know how long it takes for emails to roll out. It probably took about 6 to 8 hours for the email to send, which again was perfect for folks waking up in San Francisco. So we sent it out, and then we had planned to tweet about it and post about it on LinkedIn and do our socials. We'd planned to do that about 1 p.m. UK time, which is a couple of hours before folks in the US wake up. But we saw that we were getting so much traction from the UK, like just really people just absolutely going for like tweeting us and, posting about us on LinkedIn, that we decided to go early with our announcement post. So we went probably, I can't remember exactly, maybe 10 a.m. UK time. There was just so much going on. So yeah, it was crazy. And then I kind of, all the conventional wisdom for social says that if you are mentioned on something that you want other people to see, you should reply to it and engage with it. So I decided that for Crunched, I was going to reply to every single post about Crunched, whether Granola was tagged or not. So anyone posting about Crunched, I would just reply to. So from 8 a.m. through to, I think it was 8 or 9 p.m., I was replying to posts, and it was all day.
Wow.
I was replying to every single one, just trying to be a bit funny about what they'd said. I don't know. It was a bit of a wild day, and I feel very delirious even thinking about it. But I felt
But you wanted
really
that like organic engagement that was unique to every post, not just like copying the same thing and putting it on the same post, because that just feels so inauthentic, which is the opposite experience of what you wanted the campaign to be.
Exactly. And I wanted people to feel that Granola had a personality. I wanted people to, folks who follow Granola would hopefully see the fact that we were interacting. The person who posted would feel, there's always like a sense of like, okay, they've recognized me.
Validated.
Yes, validated is the word. And then I think if you've posted something, you see others posting, or if you want to post something, you see others posting, you're more encouraged to. But then if you see the thing you're posting about post back to you, there's just like a human psychology thing where you're like, oh, I am going to post because everyone else is.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Wow. Your fingers must have been cramped up after that. I'm very impressed. I myself, like I was not a Granola customer, and when I saw it popping up everywhere, I'm not gonna lie, I had some FOMO. I was like, I don't have one. So I think it does, it definitely works, right? So what can you share in terms of results? Your initial goal for all of this was to get people talking about Granola in a socially acceptable way. So, and you talked a lot about how you did that, which was so clever. But like, can you share a little bit about actual business impact and, what that did for you guys in the success of the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So look, I think just the fact that granola was visible on the internet and very, very visible on the internet for a few days. We've done a rebrand since, but it's a shame because if we'd had the rebrand, it would have been great to have all the colors. But just the fact that the granola name was out there for a few days and we were kind of being talked about, a lot of people were saying some very kind things about us, like Spotify Wrapped, the best thing since Spotify Wrapped, which is obviously very, very kind. Just like the thing that does to people's perception about the granola brand is invaluable and positions us as like a real necessity for businesses, right? Like, and I think that's important. So, we had millions of organic impressions within the first few days of that campaign. And there was a long tail. We still get people asking us today for their granola crunched, which is, wild. It finished 4 months ago. So like, it's amazing that people are still asking for it. So yeah, millions of organic impressions, which was great. We saw very strong sharing rates. So we could see the percentage of folks that were clicking the share button. Click-through rates on something like this are, typically in the low single digits. We were looking at something like 25% of people were sharing their crunched, which is really cool.
I think those are some really strong metrics.
It was kind of amazing to see. But yeah, I think it did for some folks change how they felt about granola too. So, we saw some really high acquisition for the kind of week or so after crunch, like the highest to date, which was great. And that was great. So we achieved that goal. Something that we didn't anticipate, but I think did happen, was people started to think about granola as more than meeting notes. Like, as in, granola is actually a place that understands you at work. And that context is really valuable and useful. And I think that was a very good unintended consequence that I personally didn't expect. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So you not only did you achieved the goal. People definitely talked about you, as you pointed out, every marketer's dream to kind of have a marketing campaign go viral like that. But then to also have that happy unintended outcome of the mind shift that customers and prospects had about your product it's a dream. It's a marketer's dream. So congrats on that. Just again, so clever, very all perfectly executed. Okay, so now I want to shift gears just a little bit. And let's say that you're my coach and I am trying to pull off an engaging marketing campaign and I want to use customer insights and my product. Help me understand what the playbook looks like for this. And what would step one looks like? What's the first thing I need to go do if I'm trying to pull off a not necessarily a wrapped campaign, but using the approach of customer insights, product capabilities, and wanting to create some customer engagement?
Yeah, for sure. So I think firstly, for any kind of customer engagement campaign like this, you have to have a product that users love using. And so if that isn't the case, that needs to be fixed first, I would say, because users are not going to share something that they don't love using, even if the insight, maybe you could do it if there was like a really unhinged or ridiculous thing that they might share for different reasons, which would give you visibility, but not necessarily kind of like a positive association. So look for things like people proactively saying that they use the product. We had kind of a baseline level of this on Twitter, X, and LinkedIn as well beforehand. Look at your retention numbers, look at your daily active use, look for your customer conversations with customer support and see how sentiment is there. If there's like strong emotional language being used there, you should look. But really, without a kind of genuine emotional connection with your brand, this doesn't work. So the reason this worked is because the team here have made an amazing product. And as a result, I very luckily had permission to do a campaign with the team on top of that.
Yeah. So step one, you have to have for a minimum viable campaign, you absolutely must have customers, current paying customers who just genuinely love the product. Okay, assume I have those conditions. What comes next? What's step two?
So the next thing I think is having a think about how you can actually execute internally. So you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You're going to need a team. Something like this required a lot of what you, I guess, call cross-functional collaboration. I mean, for us, it was engineering on the back end and the front end. It was AI prompting. It was design, both from a product design point of view, but also from a kind of brand and marketing design point of view. So identify the people who can do all of the core functions of the thing you need to deliver. And so, yeah, I just described those for us. And if you don't have those, where are you going to get them from? Like, could you work with someone? Could you engage an agency or a freelancer to help you? Noting that if you go externally, it might take a bit longer. And so you need to give yourself a bit more time.
Yep. So basically identify what are the jobs to be done and who's going to do those jobs. What are the roles I need cross-functionally to make this super successful? Okay, so I got my conditions. I know customers love my product. I figure out all the roles, cross-functionally who are going to help me pull this thing off. I put the people in the place and, in place of those roles. So what's next? What's step three?
So I think next is kind of what can you use from your product that would be genuinely interesting or useful to users. So just firstly, think about, what's the artifact inside your product that could be useful? And really the whole time here, you need to be, I think what a lot of people do is they love something inside their product and they want more people to see the thing that they love. So they boost it or they put that forward for consideration at a stage like this. Whereas you need to flip that completely and put your customer's sunglasses on and look through those glasses and see the world with that tint. And once you've got those sunglasses on, to, I guess, extend the metaphor, identify the signals that a user will think, oh, I see myself in that thing. So, for us, catchphrase is a really good example of that, where, we have someone saying the same word more than 5 times in the space of 2 weeks, excluding things like and, the, I, whatever.
Right.
That is a good candidate for this kind of a thing. That said, you need to build a system as you start thinking about these things. So as you start thinking about that context and how you might want to present it back to users, you have to think about the privacy story. So if anything is sensitive or private or, privileged even, you need to make sure that only that user can see it and they know that you've put those protections in place. So yeah, I hope that makes some kind of sense.
Yeah.
For, step
oh my
3.
gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And can I just say, I've never heard your specific metaphor for looking at things through the customer's perspective. I will be stealing the sunglasses metaphor. Don't worry, I will give you credit.
I literally just came up with it.
It's the best thing I've ever heard. I love it. Something else that I think you've already said, but it's worth kind of repeating here, is that when you look at all of this customer data that you want to try to see what context is available and how you can use it for a campaign. And you talked about making sure that it's, not proprietary, not private, not things that people don't want shared externally. But what you guys did with Crunched, and I think what should be done in any kind of leveraging customer insights for an engaging campaign, is to make it about the customer and the user, not the company they work for.
Yeah.
If it's a B2B setting, So
definitely.
Yeah. And I think that's something, again, that if you want it, going back to what makes something shareable is that it's about the person who's sharing it, not necessarily like the company they work for.
You're totally right. And like there's I was about to use the word lazy. Maybe I should use the word lazy. There's a very lazy version of this, which is you used feature X, Y number of times.
Yeah.
That is not the way to do it, because I don't care how many. Right.
I don't care.
I don't care how many times I've used that feature. What I care about is the thing that I did with the feature. If you can reflect that back to me, great.
Right. I know. And it's just, it's again, a lot of this has to do with like the context and sharing or building that context around it to make it a fun and entertaining and interesting story.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So let me dive into now. You talked about some earlier on with a crunch. You talked about that, like you said, some like kind of establish some guiding principles around this. So this is kind of digging a little bit deeper into like, okay, I have the context now for, or I have the insights that I want to use, tell me about how those principles, the guiding principles, like how should I consider that as part of the the insights that I now have and how I should use them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we found this really useful early on, where we followed the steps. We had a bunch of context, and we had some ideas for what we could do for the whole experience, but we kind of stepped back a bit and started to set some rules about what we should actually do. And as soon as we set the rules, it was actually much easier. So I think for everything, if you're doing like a campaign that uses context in some way, setting yourself these rules it just makes things so much easier, because you can consider an idea, and then if it doesn't meet the rules, you can throw it away or change it. So, some principles that we set before were, we've talked about this quite a lot, but give people a way to talk about themselves, make users feel seen, surprise and delight them, make them feel like entertained, and the tone should be positive, should be safe. It should feel like it's not kind of taking aim at you, but rather celebratory, but still like that edge of fun, which I think we did really well.
Yes. Okay. So if I were doing this today, I would come up with whatever guiding rules or principles make sense for me. But if I want, and this is something you did with Crunched too, is you worked really hard to define the tone. So maybe that's part of this step, is to define the tone and to, figure out what are those must-haves for the insight and how I'm using it. So now once I have the insight and, those guiding principles, like what's next? Is it just to build, or is there anything else I need to consider before I jump into building?
Yeah, I guess, we didn't do it slightly this way around, but I would do it this time. I'd kind of set the rules first and then I'd brainstorm second. But sometimes you need to come up with ideas, and then you can, kind of set the rules based on the example ideas you have. So I guess these two stages are interchangeable, but brainstorm and then see if they fit the principles, or create the principles and then do the brainstorm. Either way, I think are interchangeable. But yeah, come up with some ideas and narrow them down, I think would be the next one.
Fun enough, and you can bring on board all the people that you put into roles to get the brainstorm accomplished. Okay, so then once you have the idea, now you build.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
That's right. And something that's kind of culturally very important at Granola is getting as close to the thing that you want to ship as quickly as possible, and then iterating and refining until you get to something that you feel is ready to ship. So we did that with Crunched. We made a very minimum viable version of Crunched. James made it in a couple of days, and then we started playing with it. So we shared it with the team. They played with it, gave loads of feedback. We iterated based on the feedback. We did it again. We did it again. And then we reviewed it a couple of times with some key folks, and, testing against our principles again, the things that we kind of spent the most time iterating on were accuracy, humor, whether it felt useful, whether it was like genuinely delightful. And, the first 3 versions were fine, but they weren't really fun. And I think we would not have got to the experience we had back in December if we hadn't have done this step. So this step is so crucial.
Got it. Okay. So the internal kind of like testing and iterating and making sure that it's going to land.
Yeah.
So if let's just say like internally, you're using your product. So, and just the nature of your product, you can test it internally on just internal employees. Yeah. But if you don't have that, if you're doing this at a different company, different product, would you maybe consider doing like a little beta test with some like trusted customers to get their feedback?
Yeah, I think so. I think we did do this with Crunched. So we showed it to, I think, about 10 users of lots of different backgrounds.
Oh, great.
So we did that. I definitely would recommend it.
Okay.
We were quite picky about who we chose because we wanted specific feedback. So we wanted to get feedback from someone who manages a team of talent and people. We picked out a bunch of industries that we thought it might be a bit risky to do this with. And so, yeah, definitely. But make sure you trust them enough not to reveal all the secrets.
Of course. Yeah. It's pretty standard when you have, some kind of beta group, or I've never experienced not having some kind of, NDA kind of thing. So, okay. So now once I have, the test, I've done the testing, I'm ready to launch. Is there any last minute suggestions that I should consider as I'm launching, a customer insights engagement campaign?
Good question. I think just be ready to, like, social is your friend. Organic social is your friend. Organic social is where all this happens. So spend all of your time there. You can't influence, well, I'll come back to this in a second, but on the day, you can't influence private channels. So don't bother. Spend all of your time making it happen on socials. And to do that, reply to everyone, make it feel really personal to them, give them something that is surprising. So you have, with campaigns like this, you have permission to be a bit different. You have permission to drift slightly from your brand tone of voice. So encourage that. I think optimize your product beforehand for sharing. So we did that with Crunch. So it was really easy to share to wherever you wanted to share it to. And we made a bunch of iterations on that as well. And just keep replying. I think that's the key.
Yeah. Thing. What did you spend like 12 to 15 hours on LinkedIn
Long
replying
time.
to? Maybe find like part of the team who can take shifts.
Good idea. Yeah. That's one for next year.
Okay, so let me quickly recap what I think the steps were. So the first one was to look over making sure that my product has that it's loved by my customers. So the conditions are right there. And then step 2 is making sure that I have the right team, the jobs to be done, then putting the right people in those roles to help pull this thing off. And then I want to audit my data, try to gather context, figure out what insights I should use, and then define the guiding principles around how I'm going to use that. Then moving on to, you mentioned the brainstorm, bringing the people in the room, looking at that data, figuring out, how we're going to, what should we do to actually leverage it in a campaign, then build everything. And that's part of getting the right people on board who are going to help me build it. Testing and iterate, and then launching, making sure that I'm staying engaged. Anything else to the story, or did I miss anything?
Yeah, I guess as we just talked about, actively engaging and making sure that you don't just launch and then leave. Launch, stay in the room, and keep going. And then, I guess if you do get a bit of a a boost or it does go better than expected, think about how you can use that in the future, which we've certainly done so.
Perfect. Okay, my last question for you on this topic. What's one piece of advice that you want a marketer to take away from trying to launch a campaign like this? If there's only one thing that they should like consider and remember, what should it be? Biggest takeaway.
Ooh. Make it easy for users to reflect themselves quickly through something else. So like Crunched is basically a mirror that lets you talk about yourself to others. And as a result, people shared because that's what they want to do. They want to talk about themselves. Even if humans don't, it's embarrassing or it is not societally acceptable to boast about yourself. And that is, like, I very much subscribe to that. I'm very embarrassed about talking about myself.
100%. Yeah.
But I still shared my Crunched and so did lots of others. So, yeah.
I love it. Okay. Well, this story was just so clever, so impressive. And I know captivated clearly millions based on the impressions that you garnered. So congrats again on the campaign and thank you for sharing it today.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and get into the second segment of our show, which is the messaging critique. So this is where, Jack, you and I, as marketing experts, get to analyze real world messaging. And the fun part is you get to pick the company that we will look at today. So what you're going to do is you're going to reveal the company. You're going to tell me what you're loving about it, something you wish the product marketer would have done differently or considered as they were putting together the messaging or the story. And then we're going to brainstorm a little bit around how the product marketer can take it to the next level. So, Jack, if you don't mind, reveal the company that we'll be looking at today.
Lovable.
I love it. Okay, so Lovable. I love it. Haha. So that's lovable.dev for those of you who want to follow along. Okay, so tell me what's standing out to you. What are they doing really well in terms of their messaging?
So they did the messaging that's like sticking in my mind at the moment is they just did their first brand campaign or brand video. And the messaging is, oh my God, I've literally just forgotten it. Some ideas are too loud to ignore. That's it.
Yes.
And I really love how, Lovable is basically a way to make websites and apps with AI. And all of the other players in this space are talking about the coding capability of their tools. Claude has started to do this, but they haven't done it with Claude Code. Lovable, however, they're basically really kind of zeroing in on this idea of ideas and bringing those ideas to life. And they've done it in a really beautiful way with their new film. They've just done lots of out of home in London. They were all over the tube, kind of all centered on this idea of making your ideas come to life. And I really like how smart that is, just in terms of pulling on the actual thing a user is doing.
Yes. And you know what else is that it's a little bit motivating,
Yeah.
So if you have an idea that's just kind of like itching at you and, that's been in your mind and seeing something like that, it's motivating to be like, yeah, this is too loud to ignore. So what, and as you're clearly this is geared toward like creators, right? Or, builders, not necessarily builders who are technical, but those who want to, vibe code, if you will. So what's one thing you wish their marketers or product, I don't even know if they have product marketers, but because they're kind of a startup, but what do you think they would have considered differently as they were thinking through this campaign?
I mean, I think it's a really good campaign. So I don't think there's too much to consider differently. What I would say from their brand film, the use case in the brand film is basically a website dedicated to this song that is in their head. And I know why they've done it, because brand films that have music in them, particularly catchy music are more likely to be remembered. So but I feel like that's why they've done a brand film with a catchy song in. Like I know that would be my guess as to why they've done it.
100%. Yeah.
But what they've, in choosing that, which I think was the right thing to do for a brand film, but in choosing that, the use case is slightly weaker because it doesn't really say what most people would build a website for necessarily. Like they will have loads of data on like what people are actually building. And I think they've slightly sacrificed specificity in the brand film, but I think it was still the right choice because I think if you're doing kind of upper funnel marketing, awareness consideration stuff, if you're looking at just awareness, you need to optimize for memorability, which is what they've done with the song. But with a PMM hat on, you want those use cases to be fresh and sharp. And I think they lose a few points just for that. But I think it's a good ad.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So how would you iterate on it or take it to the next level or maybe expand the campaign beyond just the video?
Well, so they've already done so really well with out of home, really crisp, nice billboards or kind of tube cards that say very short, snappy value prop lines like your idea could be shipped by the time this train reached its station or something. It was even shorter than that.
Yeah.
Really nice stuff. I'd like to see some kind of stunt or activation that like really brings this to life. Like, wouldn't it be cool if they stopped people in the street and said something like, what's your idea, dream, whatever? And then Lovable just goes and grants them that wish or gives them a dream or something like that. I think that's a really nice expansion of the idea, maybe.
Yeah, kind of like people like stopping people in the street to like conduct little mini docu-series or something. They could do like a similar campaign that expands on it. Actually love that. Okay. Shout out Lovable. I think you guys, reach out to Jack. Sorry, we're not stealing him from Granola, but
love those guys.
But yeah, there's something here. All right. So Jack, one thing that I always try to make space for on the podcast is a moment of gratitude. So thank you so much I know as a founding marketer at a startup, you have no time. So thank you so much for making time to come on the podcast and share the story, share your playbook. It's so helpful for the rest of the marketing community. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
That was a real privilege to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and you kind of already gave some shout outs to the rest of the Granola team, but just wanted to open the door again. Anyone else you want to quickly shout out and say, hey, thanks. You've made a really big impact on my career, the Granola campaign, and anything to that nature. Now's a good time.
In the spirit of giving gratitude, which I love that you do this on your show, by the way. Just a big shout out to Tristan Thomas, who was the VP of marketing at Monzo, gave a chance on me to kind of start doing marketing. And he kind of taught me that if you just like go and try and learn something, you'll probably be able to learn it as long as you like apply yourself and dedicate yourself to like figuring out. And so I learned a lot from like that has really stayed with me. And I've had loads of very influential kind of marketers in my life at my time. So I feel very, very grateful to have worked with so many. Another, Adam Little, who was my manager at Monzo for a long time and taught me a ton about marketing as well.
Wow, we're going to have to go get the Monzo guys and have them come be on the podcast.
Oh, definitely.
Sounds like...
Oh, there are some amazing PMMs at Monzo. You should totally have them on.
Oh, good tip. Okay, my last question for you, Jack, is the best place to find you on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I also have a newsletter that I haven't written in a very long time. So I don't recommend subscribing at the moment, but I will get back on it.
All right, we'll keep our Specky.news. Okay, we will keep our eyes open for it. I'll link it in the show notes just in case people want to just have it in their inbox to be ready for when the next one comes. Again, thank you so much, Jack. And hey, PMM listeners, if you like this episode, please share it with a PMM friend. And I'd be so grateful if you would leave a review or hit subscribe. It helps so tremendously with our reach. Thank you so much for coming along on this adventure with us today. I hope this episode leaves you with inspiration to take on the next step of your own journey.